Well, after a very successful second season, Halt and Catch continues to establish and develop its characters in a game-changing season that takes the show in a new direction than ever before and shows us what the show is truly capable of. Hey guys, come over this season of *Halt and Catch Fire*. Let's just get into the show, because as you guys know, I binged the first two seasons. Going into this, I definitely was very excited, as, you know, I wasn't a huge fan of Season 1, but Season 2 truly showed what the show could do. I thought it was just a much more compelling season, but even at that, I thought Season 2, as good as it was, I knew in my mind the show can do better. I knew that. So Season 3, going into it, I definitely was very excited. It seemed like the show was again trying to reinvent itself, which is something the show seems to be very good at. And after watching Season 3, I was absolutely right. Not only is *Halt and Catch Fire* Season 3 completely different than the first two seasons altogether, but it is a complete different kind of season, really. This is by far the best season the show has given us. It is a true masterpiece and takes the show in a whole new direction. It really does. And really shows what the show can truly do, but there's a lot to get into with this season, but let's get to the plot of the season, because there's a lot of different things going on this season. Essentially, the plot of this season is focusing again on mutiny. That's our main focus. Now that Donna and Gordon have gone to LA, we pick up Season 3. They you know, everything's been established. They've gotten, you know, used to their new working space. Mutiny is a lot more successful, and we see there's a lot of clashing going on. But even though Mutiny is so successful, the big focus really is on everyone that's working there. Can they get along? Can they, you know, they have very different clashing ideas. Can they move past those ideas and move on from their past and be able to maintain, you know, working in Mutiny as long as they have and be able to work on it together? That really is our main focus of Season 3. We have other stuff going on with Joe, which I'll get into, but let's just get into Season 3 overall, because there is a shit ton of stuff to talk about, and I really want to talk about what I loved about this season. So it's really smart about this the third season, to get right into it, is the fact that, like I said, once we get into this third season, they are already adjusted to this new workspace. You know, we don't need that whole trying to adjust to new surroundings and, you know, trying to see the difference from LA to, you know, where they were before. I can't remember where they were before, but they're trying to adjust to that. But what is really good about this season is that there's a lot of damage that came with the last season, and because of that, there's a lot of stuff to deal with. And the amount of stuff that happens this season is really crazy in terms of emotional, but this really is, in my opinion, the most character-driven season we have had yet. Season 2 was very character-driven, but it was very focused on mutiny and developing that and trying to share the focus of the show. But now that a lot of that is already established, this season really focused a lot on the characters, and that's something they did really well. But the first thing to talk about is that since Gordon and Donna have moved to LA, Cameron is actually now living with them, we see. She is now their, you know, roommates, and it was kind of cool to see Cameron living in their apartment, because it adds this really different dynamic to Cameron and Donna. They're a lot more than just friends this season. They've kind of become their own family, and the way you see Cameron, she's bonding with Joni and their other daughter, I can't think of her name right now, but she's bonding with their two daughters, and you can see that she's living there. She's playing a lot of video games. I mean, she's just really comfortable there, and you definitely do see that. Gordon and Donna, on the other hand, they have a lot to deal with, because clearly these two, while they seem like they're doing okay, as we know, these two were very close to getting a divorce. I mean, we saw at the end of Season 2 that it seemed like there was going to be some divorce papers, but basically they said, look, we're going to move, and that's how we're going to fix this marriage, and they're there to do that. You can see that they're trying. I like that they actually are trying to fix this marriage. They definitely are trying to, you know, figure out what to do there, and I like seeing that overall. But Gordon's still dealing with, one, the brain damage that he went through, you know, last season, with him finding out about the cancer and whatnot, but also with him giving that, with you know, Joe stealing the code that he gave to him to basically create his own new virus software, which Joe has gone on to basically be kind of like a Steve Jobs of sorts, which is kind of what Joe's always been, but Joe is a completely different arc that we'll get into in a little bit. But a lot of this season, like I said, is dealing with change and really how to move Mutiny forward. We definitely see that with Cameron and with Donna. You know, they're trying to move Mutiny forward. They're trying to make it a much more public sort of thing. And I really did like seeing that. That was very interesting to see the way that that was all done. definitely all of that was really well. And the premiere in general is probably the strongest premiere the show has given us, because it's very confident, it knows what it wants to be, and there's not a ton of stuff to set up because we've already set up a lot of what's gone on. We see that they've adjusted to where they are, but they're also trying to explore their options to expand beyond chat. There's this great scene where we see, Cameron has started to hack into people's conversations. She's starting to see what you can do in a chat room. I mean, the technology is really advancing this season. That's something that really they're not exactly ready for. I mean, it's happening before their eyes, and it's kind of out of their control. They can't really do much about it. The technology is going to change no matter what they do, and that's something they really are dealing with throughout the season. There's this scene where Cameron hacks into this guy's chat room, and he sees how, far she's willing to go, and it just shows, what Cameron is willing to do, how far she's willing to go in mutiny, how not regretful she is of it. I thought overall it was very interesting to see, and I really did enjoy that overall. Very interesting stuff with the way that scene was done. There's a lot of the season that really does explore that. They see that chatting is really a big thing, and they really want to make mutiny more than just a video game thing. They want to make it a lot more, and you definitely do see that. Gordon also is really trying to adjust to getting into mutiny in general. He really is. We see that he isn't really feeling like he's in charge because he's not really in charge. I mean, Cameron and Donna, they're the ones that are very much in charge. Gordon's kind of trying to find a place there. He doesn't really know what he should be doing. He's bonding well with the workers and everything, but he just doesn't really feel like he's as much as, in charge as he thought he would be. He feels like he's kind of just there. And we know, obviously, that Cameron still doesn't exactly trust him because of what he ended up doing last season, with him. I can't remember exactly what he did, but, remember what he did last season to them. She still hasn't exactly forgiven him for that, but she has moved on, and that's a lot of what the season deals with, is things that happened last season they have moved on from, but they haven't forgotten, and that's very important to see going in the season. But basically, the episode ends with us seeing, they're talking about moving forward, trying to figure out what to do, and basically realizing that they are going to try to accomplish this together. They're not going to let one thing get in their way, and I definitely really did like seeing that overall. I liked definitely a really well done premiere. But then we get to episode 2, which really focuses on Joe's plot, which really, they're not two separate plots this season. We have to talk about both things at the same time. Like I said, Joe has gone on to create this antivirus software, and one of Cameron and Donna's workers, clients, whatever you really want to call him, he's working at Muni. His name is Ryan. He is a key coder. He basically has had, tons of experience in coding. He knows exactly what coding is all about, and he becomes Joe's new protege, if you will. He's very much like a Cameron and Joe type relationship. The difference is, of course, that Ryan, this is a lot more work-centric, and Ryan really does see how far Joe is willing to go. But Joe this season is a lot more compelling than what we got with Cameron and Joe in season 1, because Joe really has changed. That's something the show really does do very well. Characters have changed and that they've moved on, and Joe is no different. Joe has in fact moved on. We see that he is kind of right away manipulating Ryan into what he's doing. Ryan doesn't really realize what he's getting himself into, and the scenes between Joe and Ryan are overall very interesting. I really did love where the plot ended up going. I'll get more into that in a second, but he ends up going with Joe. They start working on their own little thing together, and you can see that Joe, he's kind of regretful of what he's doing. You definitely do see that. But Joe, at the same time, he's very manipulative towards Ryan. He's doing the same manipulative stuff that he usually does. He's trying to tell him, you need to he's trying to tell him when he's focused on. He's basically trying to control him in the way he does with Cameron. But Ryan isn't as easy to budge. You definitely do see that. Ryan isn't going to fall as much for Joe's tricks, and I definitely did like seeing that throughout the season. But that's basically how the season starts out. Let's get into episode 3, because that's really the first thing I do want to talk about. Episode 3, one of the pivotal scenes in that episode has to do with Gordon and Donna. These two are pretty much at each other's throat, not throughout the entire season. Like I said, the damage really is there still. And Gordon finds out, Donna finds out what Gordon did last season, of course, and they have a whole fight about it, about what Gordon did, with him cheating on her and everything, and the affair that he had. And it's just a really well done scene, because you see that while these two seem like they have moved on, they definitely haven't forgotten, and it gets really personal. I mean, he starts talking about her as a mother. She starts talking about, what are your kids going to think you? I mean, it gets really, really bad. And there's a lot of great stuff like that this season. And definitely, you do see that. There's a lot of tension going on between them. And overall, I thought that definitely was very interesting, the way that that was done. But meanwhile, we see that Gordon, Joe, he's trying to, appeal to the McMillian board, who he's got a ton of people on his side right now. He's trying to get them to, go along with Ryan and take Ryan under his wing and everything. I thought that overall was very interesting. So that's really what happens in episode 3. That episode 3 really is one of those type of transition episodes. Let's get into episode 4 though, because episode 4 is incredible stuff. I really did love episode 4 overall. Episode 4 is when Gordon wants to kind of provide a distraction. We see, he wants to be able to be in control. He wants to basically be able to feel as much, as a part of this team as Cameron or Donna do. So he decides to kind of not distract everyone, but he decides to kind of rally up everyone by starting this game of laser tag, which it was fun to see. That is until one of the coworkers ends up actually hitting Gordon in the, where his brain is, and this really does start to hurt him. They don't know the kind of damage that Gordon's gone through. They don't know the condition that he's in. I mean, Gordon still is not in a great condition. We definitely see that. He definitely is still dealing with what he's doing, and definitely, I thought that was interesting, the way that was done. It was very sad to see, definitely, because that Gordon is still dealing with, what's going on and everything. But you can tell that he does want to move on, like I said. It's very harrowing, too, though. We definitely do see that. It's very harrowing, and I thought, overall, what they did with Gordon in that scene was really interesting, with him trying to move on. I'm trying to remember what else happened in episode 4, because there was a lot that happened. Oh, okay. There's this other person that comes into play named Diane. She is this other person that starts working at Mutiny, and she and Boz really starts to get very close. Boz has a lot more to do this season. Boz in general, I was completely wrong last season. He didn't leave Mutiny. He was gonna leave, but he came back in for Cameron and Donna, and we definitely do see that. He came back for Cameron. But the episode also starts one of the big parts of the season, which is really that while Cameron started Mutiny, a lot of it is slowly starting to get out of her control, starting off with these characters of Doug and Craig. These are two workers. One of them is very nice, but occasionally has breakdowns, and the other one definitely is very temperamental, and definitely is someone that Cameron feels shouldn't be there. Diane, however, is the one to make this decision and says that no, we need to keep them. They're good, for what we have. We need to keep the workers that we have. They're good at what they do, and we can't get rid of them. So Cameron really is outnumbered, and I really do love this scene, especially when we get to what happens later into the season. This is really starting to show that while she started this company, it's not really her company to have anymore. It is, in fact, her company, but it's also Donna's, it's Gordon's, it's Diane's. It's not just her company, and it's way different than what Cameron wanted this to be. This used to be a simple partnership that was a very small sort of business, and now it's much bigger. Cameron is really starting to feel overwhelmed. You definitely do see. And Cameron, by far, like I said, I didn't say this before, but she by far is the best character this season. I loved everything he did with her. We see Joe in this episode. There's this guy who ends up actually harassing him because he's bisexual and everything, and Joe just gives it to him. Really well done scene. Really did love the way that was done. But episode 4 in general, really did like it. Really good stuff there. Episode 5, though, is for me when the season really starts to kick off, because the first 4 episodes are great, but episode 5 is when things just get better and better and better. The tension just keeps escalating after this episode, and really the fabric of this season really is shifted after this episode, because for a while I'm like, oh, this is going to be a transition season. It's not going to be anything that big. There's going to be stuff going on. All that really changes in episode 5. We definitely see something going on there. Donna and Gordon decided to give themselves a vacation in this episode, so they're kind of off doing their own thing, and they're basically trying to get the magic back is what they're trying to do. Gordon is hoping that he can get that magic back and that they can be back together, but you can see that Donna really doesn't want to do that. She doesn't want to have sex. She doesn't want to be intimate. She just doesn't really want to be the way that her and Gordon should be. It seems like she really has moved on from him, and he really doesn't understand why. He wants to get that magic back. I thought that was a very well done scene. They did really good stuff with them in this episode. But the big stuff going on, we see Cameron and Boz, they go to Texas. Boz goes to visit his son. His son really has moved on without him. Boz is kind of upset because his son has built this crib and has basically built an entire life for himself, and Boz doesn't really understand why. So Boz, again, he's kind of moved on. But Cameron in general, we get this great scene between Boz and Cameron. I don't remember if this was this episode or episode 4, but we find out Cameron's real name was actually Catherine, which I don't think we knew before, but I thought that was interesting that we found this out. Her name is actually Catherine. Her dad, I guess, died, and I thought it was interesting that we found this out, what was going on with Cameron. We don't know a ton about her home life, but we definitely get more into that here. It's not a huge thing, but it's just a really good example of character development and the way they get to care more about these characters. By sharing a lot more information about some of these characters, that immediately gets me to care more for them. They did a really good job with that. Joe really has the big stuff in this episode, though. We see Joe. He is in a state where he potentially could have gotten AIDS. We see he gets a call, and that was a thing that was going on in the 80s, and the show very subtly touched upon that. They could have gone very heavy with it, but again, just like a lot of things in the show, they're not too on the nose with it. They're very subtle about it, they're very small with it, and they make it so it only affects these characters, and they did a really good job with that. We see Joe, in fact, doesn't have AIDS. He's very happy about that, and that's something this season did so well. This is by far Joe's best season because it really shows Joe the human. It shows the person behind the mask. It's not just him. Yes, he has that visionary, manipulative side, controlling side to him. I think he always will have that, but this season, a lot of that power is stripped away from him. We definitely do see that, especially starting off with this episode, the way things are going there. What ends up happening with Joe and Ryan, I thought overall was very interesting. And the way that things go between Joe and Ryan, like I said, they start to realize that a lot of this stuff is very much out of their control. They definitely do start to see that in this episode. But episode 5 ends in a very interesting way. We see Cameron, she's in kind of this state where she's not very happy, and she's kind of feeling alone because Boz has gone to his son, Donna and Gordon aren't available. She's kind of just on her own. She's on her bed, though, and she's wearing a ring, and we don't know whose ring that is, but that really is the setup for episode 6, which is an incredible episode. I love the way this episode was done. Basically, they get an anonymous offer to purchase Mutiny. Someone else wants to purchase it. They don't want it to be theirs anymore. They want it for themselves. And that's understandable. I mean, when Mutiny is as successful as it is and has so many people working there and is so, successful for the public and everything, it would make sense why someone would want Mutiny. And this really is creating a lot of tension because, again, this was Cameron's idea. This was her company that she started, Donna as well, and they really don't know what to do about that. They really feel like this isn't a good thing, that this is going on. But Gordon and Cameron are really bonding over video games. We start to see Cameron really gets inspired by video game season. I didn't talk about that, but that's a big part of the season as well, is the rise of video games. And I talked about in season 2, they talked about briefly, but it really is a big part of the season. Cameron is just really inspired by video games and what's going on. Her and Gordon are bonding over that. Donna pretty much is by herself in this episode. She's trying to figure out what to do about Mutiny Mutiny being purchased and everything, which I thought was interesting to see. Joe, meanwhile, though, is in his own situation. So Joe is really clashing with the board. They feel that he's no longer applicable enough, to be the person that's controlling what he's controlling, and it really is starting to see it's out of his hands. It really is. I mean, yes, he's taken Ryan under his wing, but even though he really doesn't have that control anymore. This wasn't his company to start with, and we'll get into where that goes, but the big stuff comes up when we see that Cameron has moved out. She's actually left because her and Donna, things just aren't the same anymore. Things are getting really tense between these two, and they just can't really be in the same house, and we don't know where Cameron's gone. But then we come to the revelation that Cameron is in fact married. She's actually secretly married Tom, we find out. This entire time she's been married to Tom, and honestly, I'm all for that. I thought Tom leaving in season 2 was a very abrupt exit. The way it was done seemed like they just got rid of him because they didn't know what to do with him. So I was very happy to see that he returned this season and that Cameron had in fact been with him this entire time. And it is this huge revelation for Donna. I mean, here is who she has called her best friend. She thought she knew everything about her. She thought that she, was helping her and everything, when in reality Cameron was probably only there for her own benefits, and probably was just there because she was able to and was trying to hide the fact that she was married to Tom this entire time. And we get the sense that it hasn't just been a couple weeks. It's been a long time that's been going on. I think she said like a year or something like that. I don't remember exactly how long she said, but those two are in fact together, and that really sets up what is probably the best episode the show has ever done. But before we get into that, we get to Joe, who at the very end of the episode, after having all the power stripped away from him, realizing he has nothing left, Joe finally admits that he stole the code from Gordon, and everything he has worked for has been Gordon, that he illegally has been making this company, and basically is the moment where he gives up. And it is this huge, vulnerable moment for Joe. Joe rarely gives up. He never does. I mean, I can't really think of a time where Joe has straight up given up. I mean, yeah, the whole thing with Sarah, he kind of did, but this is really different. This is a company that really did mean something to Joe, and Joe actually gave up. He did something human. He realized this wasn't his company to have in the first place, and that he shouldn't have had this code, that he stole it from Gordon, and this is his moment where he finally decides to give up, and we definitely see that go down as it does. And that is when we get into what is by far the best episode the show has ever given us, which is The Threshold. This is the best way to describe an intense, perfect episode of Halt and Catch Fire. This is just a very huge transition of an episode. So much shit going on. I mean, really, it is a clusterfuck of an episode, but at the same time, everything that happens is just great. Every scene is gold. Everything is amazing. I loved everything about this episode. Let's get right into The Threshold, though, because there's so much to talk about with that episode, because that really sets up the last 3 episodes of this season. Essentially, The Threshold, again, it's dealing with Donna and Cameron, but it's dealing with 2 major things. One, there's this thing called the IPO, which is a more, the best way to describe it is an upgrade of what they've been doing at Muni. Donna feels that they need to do this right now, that they're popular, there are people that want to take their company, why not just make the IPO right now? But Cameron feels that they have to wait, and that the best time to do it is, just to wait a couple weeks or something like that. Not a couple weeks, wait a couple years, not even months, years, because the IPO will definitely take some time, and she feels that will be even better once it is, and once it's ready, it will be ready. And Donna, you can see, doesn't really want to take no for an answer, we see. Even though she says no to Cameron, you can tell she definitely does want to do this on her own. We definitely do see that. And the other big plot, of course, is dealing with Cameron and Tom's relationship, which very quickly is smoothed over. We see that Donna, she sees how happy these two are, she apologized to Cameron, and she realizes why Cameron and Tom are together, and she wishes them the best of luck. But things really do change once she has this conversation with Gordon, which is a very interesting conversation, where Gordon essentially tells Donna, why don't you just get mad at her? Why don't you try to do something? Why don't you try to hold more power? I mean, Donna's someone that has always tried to be in power. She's always felt like she's been in power. Why doesn't she try to take the power from Cameron? That is exactly what Donna decides to do. And it is this huge moment that I don't think any of us saw coming, where after all the fighting they've done, they are in this room, and basically Donna holds a meeting. She has, Gordon there, Diane there, Boz there, everyone is there, and she asks straight up, who wants to do the IPO right now? If you want to do the IPO, please raise your hand. And Cameron says, look, if you're going to do the IPO right now, I'm leaving and I'm not coming back. I'm going to quit this company and I'm out of here. Because again, she's realizing that it's out of her control. And you really do feel for Cameron in this, but you feel for Donna just as much. Cameron, this is someone who started the company on her own. Everything she's put into her work, she's put into this company, and she's done nothing but loyal. She's been nothing but loyal to this company and will do anything she can to keep it for her own. But Donna, you understand why she wants to do that. She wants to be in as much control as Cameron. She has this great idea. Why not take a strike at it? And That's what's great about this, is that while Donna is the villainous one in this situation, you really do understand where both of them are coming from. They did a really good job with that this season, but Donna does in fact get everyone to do the IPO, and then the unthinkable happens, where even Boz raises his hand and says straight up to Cameron, you're breaking my goddamn heart. And what he means by that, a lot of people have questioned what that line means when he says you're breaking my goddamn heart. What I think that means really is that he is realizing that, he's always been that father figure to Cameron, the one that can calm her down, the one that can have these talks with her and fix things. And again, he's realizing this is really out of his control. This feud between Donna and Cameron is no longer just some feud that they're going to get over in a few weeks. He's realizing that he can't do anything about this, and that he simply is not going to do it anymore, and that he really doesn't have much of a future left, for her. He can't really provide for her much anymore. It's this very sad scene. Cameron ends up leaving with Tom. We don't know where they're going, but it is this incredible scene where everything has changed, and that really sets up what ends up happening in the last 3 episodes. But that's not even the half of it. That's only one major thing that happens. The other stuff going on is between Joe and Gordon, because Joe, of course, has now confessed to what he did with Gordon, and obviously, he is kind of not a criminal, I'd say. I mean, Ryan definitely is the criminal right now, because Ryan has done a lot of things that Joe is not okay with. He stole, I believe, some hardware and did a lot of stuff, corrupted hardware and things like that. So Ryan is under investigation. Joe feels that because he is now on Gordon's good side, that this would be the perfect time for them to start their own company and for them to actually go back in business. And you're getting season 1 flashbacks, but the difference here is that these two have definitely changed, and they're a lot more sure of themselves. And Joe wants this to be a partnership, but the difference is he's gonna step back. He actually wants Gordon to be in control of this, and it actually seems like these two are going into business together. We see that it seems like things are going to work out between them. It seems like they're actually going to work together, and I thought it was very interesting to see. I was all for Joe and Gordon working together. I was very surprised to see they were working together, but I was nevertheless all for it. I mean, it was a very surprising direction that they went in, but I really did love seeing those two work together, and especially Gordon, who has done everything he can to feel like he belongs in Mutiny, which he essentially doesn't really belong in, unfortunately. Finally, it seems like he has found a place where he can finally be in control, and I definitely really did like that overall. But then we get to the ending of this episode, which is, again, truly a huge development. We see Ryan, who he's always believed in Joe. He's seen Joe as someone that he can look up to. And basically, he first releases both Gordon's, source code for Citadel and proof of Joe's plan to keep Citadel. And then he does what he feels Joe would do and literally destroys his hard drive to cover his tracks. So he's now on the run. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know how this partnership's going to go. But that was an incredible setup for when we get into episode 8, which honestly feels like a series finale. It really does, and you really don't know where the show's going to go from here. And that's something they did really well, because these characters in general don't really know where they're going to go from here. Even though Gordon has this NSF net deal with Joe, you don't really know if it's actually going to work out, if they're actually going to work at this company, if that's actually going to happen. Brian, on the other hand, he really feels betrayed, and that's because of the fact that he saw Joe as a god. He saw this as someone he can look up to. He saw this as someone he can aspire to be, and realizing that Joe really isn't in control anymore and has squandered any opportunity left he has to be the one in control, and for Ryan to essentially be the middleman, it's kind of gone, and that really does break Ryan. You definitely do see that. Even though Joe is trying to smooth things over with him, it's just kind of too hard for Ryan. You definitely do see that. However, I think the best stuff in this episode, as good as that stuff is, involves Donna. I love where they take Donna's character. Donna's all alone, we see at Mutiny at this point. Her and Boz. Boz decides to leave because he feels that his services are no longer, really required here. He feels Mutiny is a dying company, but Donna wants it to live on. She wants to be able to do this on her own, but unfortunately, Mutiny just is kind of not working. The thing that made it great is gone. Cameron was the thing that made it so great because it was entirely her vision. It felt very much like her own thing, and it felt very personal. With her gone, it's gone very corrupt, and Donna isn't really in as much control as she thinks she was, and it's very sad to see. But essentially, Donna basically ends up losing the company, which is very sad to see, but she does in fact end up losing Mutiny. There's this great scene with her and Cameron, who Cameron and Tom seems like they actually are going to make things work, and I was shocked. I thought for certain that this was a doomed relation, but it seems like these two are in fact going to make things work, that they are going to stay together possibly. You see that happening. And we see Joe, he goes to Cameron for a favor, possibly for Cameron to maybe work with Ryan, but Cameron doesn't really want to be a leader right now. In fact, she doesn't really know what she wants. She tells Tom straight out, I kind of just want to settle down and be, with him for a little bit. She doesn't really know what she wants to do, so I really like seeing that. There's a lot of uncertainty, but it's really warranted. I mean, after something like that, where do you really go? How do you come back from that? That's something that they really did explore here, is that they really don't know what to do and where they're going to go next. We see Donna go to Cameron. She's trying to gesture to her, but Cameron just walks away, obviously betrayed by what Donna did. And then the episode ends in the most devastating way possible, where we see the last good thing in Joe's life that made him feel like he was in control and made him feel like he could be this great man. Ryan ends up jumping out the window and killing himself, basically ruining anything left of Joe. Basically the last person to be sort of manipulated by Joe, but not really manipulated by Joe, ends their life, which basically ends that whole part of the manipulative Joe, and that's what ends that, and really that puts us into the season finale with a lot of uncertainty of really where we're going to go from there. So that's really everything that happens in the first 8 episodes. I'll talk about the last 2 once we get to the finale, but overall, just a really, really strong season. Let's get into some of the stuff I definitely do want to talk about. The acting this season was absolutely top-notch. I think this was everyone's best season. Everyone really gave it their all this season. You could really tell these characters, they really know who they are. They're not at all confused, and because of them knowing who they are and because of them going these more interesting directions, it gives us a chance to really see these actors range. I mean, especially from Mackenzie Davis, who, without a doubt, gives the best performance out of everyone here. I think she was just incredible in this season. Just seeing her kind of being destroyed and really losing everything that she truly cares about was very sad to see, and in the end still being able to gain something. I really do feel happy for Cameron, but like I said, at the same time, you're kind of rooting for Donna. You want to see Donna prevail. You want to see Donna be as much a great job with making this character feel like a villain. She did a very good job with that overall. I really love what they did with their relationship. One of my favorite scenes this season involves Donna pleading to an imaginary Cameron, telling her, you're my friend, you don't understand how much I need you in this, because those two need to be together to be as strong as they are, especially for Donna. Cameron doesn't really need Donna, but Donna needs Cameron, and we definitely do get into that this season, and I really did love that. The acting was great, the directing was great, but the writing really is what I loved about the show. They went in so many unexpected directions. Season 2, like I said, was the rise of Mutiny. This, without a doubt, was the downfall of Mutiny. It showed that while you have something great, it's not going to last forever. And that's something this season really does stride on, is that, things that are great don't always last. And it's true, it really does. I mean, think of the relationship between Cameron and Donna. That didn't really last. The relationship between Joe and Ryan, that didn't really last. Mutiny doesn't exactly last forever either. And we definitely do see that. Very sad to see. I definitely did feel bad with what was going on there. And, I definitely did feel bad for all the characters, and that's something they did really well this season. This season is so much to say about people who are, have this big dream, and someone who focuses their entire life on just one idea and will do anything they can to make this one idea work. They also it also has a lot to say about ego, being egocentric and wanting to be in power, but also about how important it is to have a bond with someone, how that important that friendship is. And they just did that so well this season. I absolutely love the way it was done. Also, transition, like I said, a lot of the season about the rise of the internet and how the internet really is changing before their eyes, which they can't really keep up with. You see a lot of it they don't really understand. I mean, think about how it was in the 80s when the internet was simply just a dial-up system and you didn't really know how it worked. They are completely in the dark with a lot of this stuff, and I really did love that. But they are just as much into it. Seeing Cameron and Gordon playing those video games, that's really where the show does best. I love the way that was done. The cinematography was great this season. I thought they did a really great job with that. And the editing, I thought this by far was the most fast-paced season we've had. It was slow-paced, and they did a really good job with that, but nothing ever felt slow. I was into every scene. I was into every episode. They just did an incredible job with that. I really just loved everything about that. And now that I've talked about that, let's get into the season finale, which I definitely do have a lot to say about. Alright, so now I'm going to be talking about the finale, of course, the 2 episodes that air. If you guys have not seen the season finale, do not watch the rest of the review. I want to get into full spoilers, and let's just get right into it. So like I said, after episode 8, I had no idea where the show was going to go, and they did a really good job with that. There wasn't really any predictions you can make. You don't really know what's going to happen. I thought it was exactly the right thing for the show to do, though, what they ended up doing. Because after something like that, I mean, there's only so far you can go with that. So I thought it was really appropriate for the show to have a major time jump. I didn't think it was going to be 1990, though, and that is exactly the case. And things have really changed in 1990 for the better and for worse. There are a lot of changes here. First of all, Joe and Gordon and Donna are now separated, which I'm not surprised about. It seemed like their marriage was on the rocks the entire season. It seemed like they really didn't have that bond anymore. It very much was, Donna was very dominant and Gordon was kind of just staying back because he really didn't know what to do in that relationship anymore. Donna was just becoming too controlling, and she is now, divorced him, and it's sad to see, but Donna very much is on her own. You definitely do see that. And Gordon, he is trying to help Joni, who the second they showed Joni as a teenager, I freaked out. I really did. I mean, just seeing Joni as a teenager, Joni, who we've always thought of as little kids, and we've always known them as Gordon and Donna as little kids who, from the first episode, wanted Gordon to fix that Cabbage Patch doll and get him the Cabbage Patch Kid and fix the speak and spell. That's the things that we remember. Now seeing her as a teenager was really, really interesting to see, and Gordon knows how to handle her really well. Joni is your typical, angsty teenager who hates her parents and everything, which I'm not going to lie, that is kind of a realistic portrayal. But at the same time, she really is trying to help Gordon. Gordon is now with this woman named Michelle, who she really is not a fan of. Michelle really does not sympathize much with Gordon. She doesn't like Gordon's less manly side, and she really thinks Gordon's kind of a pussy, which Gordon kind of is, but at the same time, he can't really help it. He has a really bad brain condition. You definitely do see that, and I like seeing Joni stick up for Gordon, defend him, and there's one thing that Joni says, at the end of this episode that I will talk about that I think really, it really defines this entire show and this entire season, but I'll talk about it once we get into my grade for the season overall. But I thought that was very interesting to see. Cameron, on the other hand, she's actually gone on to work for Atari. Yes, Atari, known as the game company in Japan. She is very well knowledge in Japan. She's made her own video game there, and this is where Cameron, she really, I think, out of everyone, is the most positive. She feels like she's at peace with herself. She feels like she can finally move on, and she finally feels like she's in control, which was interesting to see the way that was done. I really did like seeing Cameron on her own here, making this company, but also still being with Tom. We see that her and Tom have stayed together. They're very happily married, and doesn't really seem like anything bad is going to happen to them. I really like seeing that overall, but Joe, on the other hand, has kind of gone out on his own. He's very much an outsider. He ends up meeting up with Cameron, though, and we realize that he actually has gotten in touch with Donna. Him and Donna are in touch, and basically the whole part of this episode is that Donna wants to meet up with all of them back at Comdex to essentially talk to them about maybe starting their own next XT group, which if you don't know what Next T is, Next T essentially was the rise of the internet and the internet changing, and Donna really wants them to meet them there, and they basically decided to do that. But it's very hard for them to get that bond back, we definitely see. She wants them to work as a team. She wants this to be like the new Mutiny, but you can see that they really don't know what to do, and Donna's not really in charge because a lot of these characters are very uncertain with what they want to do, and we definitely do see that. But going back to Cameron and Joe, they actually do get very close. They're talking about what Joe's been through and what Cameron's been through, and how Joe hasn't been doing a ton, but Cameron has. A lot of really good stuff there. And Joe and Cameron actually end up sleeping together, we see. They actually do end up sleeping together, which really does complicate things for Cameron and Tom. But just like Gordon and Donna, they're willing to move past it. Tom does not know what ended up happening between Cameron and Joe, which I think is going to be a big part of next season, definitely. And I think Tom is definitely going to be a much larger part next season. I think he's probably going to be a main character. We'll have to see, though. I'm pretty sure they're probably going to upgrade him to main character, but we'll have to see the way that ends up going. But either way, there are some really fantastic scenes. Boz has retired, we see. He is no longer working. He thinks that he's, better on his own, but he's still with Diane, and he still is a mentor to Cameron. There is this great scene where he's talking to her about what her, they're talking to each other about what they've done and how they want to move on, but Cameron doesn't really know if she wants to start a family. Just a really well done scene showing that those two still will always have that bond and things won't change there. What has changed very much, though, is Donna. Donna really does want to get the team back together, and what I love about this is it is one of those get the band back together kind of stories, but the show acknowledges that things will never be the same. I mean, after what she did to Cameron, it's very hard to come back from something like that. It really is, and things will essentially never really be the same between Donna and Cameron. That's just kind of going to be how it is. I mean, even though Donna wants things to be good between them, it's never going to change, and Cameron acknowledges that very well. She says straight out, look, I'm not going to do this with you. I know you want things to change, but there's no reason, there's no way that things are going to go back to being the same way that they were. I can't, I can't let things be the same, and it's got to be different. And Donna is not really willing to do that. She really wants Cameron to, she's trying to apologize to Cameron, telling her she's sorry for what she did, but apparently it's a way overdue apology, and Cameron really is, showing her that it's very overdue. She isn't really into the idea of what Donna wants. There's this great scene where Donna's crying in her car, not knowing what to do, realizing that she really, like I said, doesn't really play much of a role into this anymore, and the season essentially ends with kind of a repeat of season 1. Gordon, Joe, and Cameron, they're working together at Next T. Donna's gone on her own. She seems like she's going to be the main villain of next season, which is surprising, but that's what it seems like it's going. Joe, they're now working together. It's very much a flashback of season 1. They're going to be working on their own, and we'll have to see what ends up happening there. But that really is the setup for season 4. It's an incredible way to conclude season 3 while also setting up season 4. They did an incredible job with that, and I can't wait to see what ends up happening as when next season goes on. So that's pretty much everything that goes down this season, including the finale, and wow, I mean, we are really headed for a very different season 4, and what a big turn of events. I mean, we started out the show with Joe, Gordon, and Cameron, trying to work at, make the Giant, trying to make that computer, and now it seems like these three are back together, but they're not at all the same people that they were in season 1. Joe's no longer as manipulative, Gordon is no longer as, much of a leader, he's a lot less controlling, and Cameron is no longer as unsure of herself. She's very sure of herself, she knows exactly what she wants, and that's something I absolutely loved about this, and it's going to be very interesting to see where that goes. My big question is Donna. Donna is really the blank slate right now. Where is she really headed? She, I think, is going to realize realize that she's not going to get things back to the way they are. She's in for a very rude awakening. At the same time, I feel bad for her, but even though I do feel bad for her, I understand why they obviously can't get back to the way things were. I mean, after she did what she did to Cameron, it's going to be very hard for her to get that back. I mean, they might be friends, but I don't really see things going Donna's way, unfortunately, which sucks, but it really does seem that way. Even Gordon, she can't really control. She can't control her and Gordon's marriage anymore. She's no longer in control of that. Gordon seems to be the one to handle Joni. We definitely do see that. He's not going by Donna's code and just little things like that they handled very well this season. And that's really how it is for all the characters. The characters are no longer really in control of other people. They're in control of themselves. They're going to focus on themselves, and I definitely do see that happening. But we'll have to see where that's really going to go. But overall, guys, this season was just incredible. I loved everything about Halt and Catch Fire Season 3, and I'm absolutely going to give this season a 5 out of 5 or an A+. Guys, this season, like I said, I loved Season 2 as much as I did. This is the season that turns Halt and Catch Fire from a very underrated TV show to one of the best shows on TV. This show is just incredible. I loved every minute of it. I can't believe I didn't review the show individually. I'm definitely going to next season. It's just been announced that they're going to get their final season next year, so that's going to be very interesting to see where the show is going to go. I think it's exactly what the show needs. This season just took the show to all new heights. It showed exactly how great this ensemble could be, how far they could go with the story, and just the places that they went with the season, and the amount of shit that happened was completely warranted. It was everything that I wanted this season, and showed me really what the show was able to do. I still think they can top it. I still think that Season 4 can be as good or better as this season was. I loved everything about it. It was incredible. And if you guys are watching Halt and Catch Fire right now, start immediately. The show is just incredible. I highly recommend it, and I can't believe that this went from a very mediocre show to one of the best shows on TV. It is one of the biggest turns I've seen for any show, and definitely that is something I will give the show. It is taking every season and making it better and better and better, and I think Season 4 is going to be exactly the same way, even though I don't exactly know where we're exactly headed. Even though Season 3 told us what's going to happen, I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen next season. And getting back to that quote that I was talking about, there is a quote from Joni at the end of episode 9 where she says to Gordon that people are not just one thing, that they are many things. And that really is the best way to sum up not just this season, but these characters in general. Yes, Joe is manipulative, but he's also a very misguided person who's very unsure of himself and doesn't really have as much confidence as he exudes. Or Donna, who strives to be in control, but at the same time knows that she's not really the one to be in control. Or Gordon, who is very damaged, at the same time wants to be in control. There are so many layers to all these characters, and that's really the thing that has driven this season and made it as good as it has. And really, that quote in general, really, I think just shows how aware the writers are of the show they're writing. And that's something I absolutely love, is when the writers know what kind of show they're writing, that's really when I know what the show is willing to do, how far the show is willing to go, and this season absolutely did that. That's basically my review of Season 3 Halt Catch Fire. Let me know what you guys thought of the season overall. Love your thoughts on it. What did you think of everything that went down this season? I thought everything was just incredible. But I will definitely be reviewing every episode of Season 4 individually. I'll tell you guys that right now. But that's my review. Hope you all enjoyed it. We'll see you guys in my next video, which will be either for a movie review or for my review of The Exorcist. And we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.